to actually go back to that part. You just skipped through it. 91 when economic liberalization happened. I'm 89 born, so I have of course no memory about it. But you were 87, you graduated in 87.
I finished my CA in 1990.
1990. Okay, 3 years CA you did.
Correct.
Okay. So, that was a very changing moment. So my main point, again, if I'm wrong, please tell me about it. Before 1991, from 47 till 1990, our GDP was only 3% growth because we believed in socialism, everyone equal. There was no capitalism, and we were going down toward downhill.
I think there are different types. There are different economic models that countries adopt, right? And it's no use looking in the rearview mirror and saying what they did was right or wrong, because
I think they had no other option. It was a last minute pull plug. I think that Manmohan Singh ji was sensible to do it.
No, I think those are brave decisions. But I'm just saying that even before that, there is obviously like in any economy there is a duality, right? The one thing is that you want to have people, you want people to grow, progress, right? But the second thing that's very important is that you want to have social justice. So the economy before 1990 focused too heavily on social justice and too little on growth.
Right? True.
And things like social justice manifest themselves in different ways. In some eras, they want social justice means that the government should have a bigger role to play because the government will act in the interest of the many rather than the interest of the one. And they then decide to invest in different, it's all driven through public sector corporations, through the government's own investment plans, which are obviously not going to be as dynamic or as entrepreneurial as we would have liked them to be.
Or else as well-oiled too.
Exactly. And they are obviously sometimes quite suspect to corruption and things of that nature. So, that's one part of it. The other part is that you also want entrepreneurship in the economy. You want businesses to grow because the smaller businesses create the maximum amount of employment. And that's a key part of our, of the social justice message, is that people should have the 4 Bs. They should have employment. So I think that's where the breakdown happened too, more particularly in the 1970s and 1980s.
Yeah, they didn't do a good job. The idea was good, but they didn't implement it. They had to execute it well enough.
So what they had done in the past caught up with them. The errors that they made in the past caught up with them. So what you had was an economy where there was a large bump in the population, not enough jobs being created, not enough investments happening. And all of that because the government was not kind of liberalizing fast enough to take it. The economic order around the world was changing. So if you see, when you come down to the 1990s, you're seeing the collapse of the Soviet Union and you're seeing the collapse of the Iron Curtain in Europe. And now you're working towards China coming out of its hibernation in the 1980s, and getting more active. Even though they are a communist country, they are very capitalistic. Economic policies, and that is where the strain started happening, and that's where
I'll just add, even our 2 wars, 65 and 71 wars, did that affect our economy?
Well, they probably have. Any war is disastrous for an economy. It destroys a lot of capital. And it destroys, human lives, which are invaluable. But I think that was, by the time it came to the 80s, it was more of internal strife, and it was more of the government's moribund policies, which were not really taking off. But then that kind of needed to change. And like all of us, everybody reacts well in a crisis. You change the most when you have a crisis on hand. Yeah. If you don't have a crisis on hand, then
then
the incentive to change is lesser. And so that's, I think, where the trigger came in, the 1991, which kind of was the balance of payments crisis, which was triggered by the sharp rise in the prices of oil, which was triggered by Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait. And so, all of these kind of things triggered off. You had a pretty tumultuous, political environment at that point in time. You had many governments coming within a short period of time. And then you came into someone like Narasimha Rao as Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh as Finance Minister. Manmohan Singh particularly didn't have a political base, so he could be a complete technocrat and take decisions and he got supported by the political establishment, including Prime Minister. So which was a change. But then, again, one change is not enough. It needs to be sustained, lots of changes. It's not, you can't really make the change at the top and it'll immediately flow down.
Yeah.
There are well-established bureaucracies and there are well-established interests which will prevent this change from happening. But there was, the people of India at that point had shown tremendous enthusiasm for this change. And so that's the reason it went ahead. It had its own challenges, right? It didn't have it had very strong unions at that point, which were, for right or wrong reasons, were pushing back on the change. You had the fact that you needed to make massive investments into the economy, and it was very difficult to raise money overseas or within the country to make those investments. As an example, if you take the availability of electricity around the country was so low as compared to the demand and the forecast demand. So unless you made massive changes in that, your telecom infrastructure was not ready. They were, there needed to be these are airports, all kinds of infrastructure need made ready. And only that change can happen. So, we could say that Manmohan Singh was the trigger, but it really, in my mind, the process still hasn't completed.